My guest this morning is Pamela Samuels Young. Has always abided by the philosophy that you create the change you want to see. While growing up in Compton, California, Pamela set giant-sized goals and used her talent, tenacity, and positive outlook to accomplish them. She consequently achieved success in both the corporate arena and literary world simultaneously. An author, attorney, and motivational speaker, Pamela spent 15 years as a managing counsel for Toyota, specializing in labor and employment law. While still practicing law, Pamela began moonlighting as a mystery writer because of the absence of women and people of color depicted in the legal thrillers she read. She is now an award-winning author of multiple legal thrillers, including, and I was talking about Anybody's Daughter a little bit earlier, Anybody's Daughter, which won the NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Fiction, and her new release, An Abuse of Discretion, and I believe there's another one after that, a shocking look at the juvenile justice system in the context of troubling teen sexting case. Prior to her legal career, spent several years as a television news writer and associate producer. She received a bachelor's degree in journalism from USC and earned a master's degree in broadcasting from Northwestern University and a law degree from UC Berkeley School of Law. She is a frequent speaker on the topics of teen sexting, child sex trafficking, self-empowerment, and fiction writing. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Reading Circle microphone, none other than Pamela Samuels Young. Pamela, good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me and agreeing to join me so early on your side of the globe.
I'm up and ready to roll.
I know that's right. So I'll tell you what, now I'll have to go back in my archives to see what year you actually were on with me, because it's been years since, and I was so glad to hear from you because I started promoting the show in a little bit different way this year, where I'm blasting out to everybody's emails who the upcoming guest is going to be. And Pamela's on my email list, so she started getting my emails, and she reached back out to me and said, "You still doing the show?" "Yeah, I'm still doing the show." And so she's done, like I said, multiple books since the last time she was here. But I tell you what, let's, for those in the listening audience who may not have heard the first one or wasn't listening during those years, let's kind of go back to the beginning of, because I see you're a Renaissance woman here in terms of attorney, motivational speaker, author, so forth and so on. Where did, let's go back to the beginning, because I'm looking at your tagline here in terms of if you want to create change that you want to see, you got to pretty much do it. Where did all that come from?
I guess my parents, for one, and just growing up where I grew up and recognizing that things weren't always going to be, as you wanted them to be, and if you wanted it, you had to go for it, I guess that's part of that. So,
whenever you were in grade school, as they call it, elementary school, high school, college, did you have an idea of what you wanted to do? Or, was an attorney your original goal to be an attorney, or was an author your original goal? Where did, kind of all of this, how did it come about?
One thing I always thank my mother that I'm an avid reader and a writer, because I can remember as like first grade, and those little book of the month clubs where you come and the little newsletter comes to the house by mail, not email back then.
That's right.
And you select a book a month, and I think that sets the foundation, because I always that book allowed me to go beyond Compton and see bigger worlds. So now, and the lawyer was never I always thought I was going to be a writer. I was always in the school newspapers and things like that, and I pursued journalism. But I never thought about fiction writing. And law school came later. I turned 30 my first year of law school. It wasn't a direct path. I never, they always say you have to, Dr. Kandufu, you have to see a doctor to be a doctor. I didn't grow up around any lawyers, and I didn't, and while I thought about that for a short period after undergrad, I think there was a lot of fear associated with that. Was I good enough? Was I smart enough? And I did not apply to law school at that time. And it took some being out of school for a while and meeting people and, you meet a lawyer here and there, and you go, you talk to somebody at a cocktail party or something, and walk away. That brother wasn't as sharp as knife in the drawer. I should be able to do this.
That's right.
After that confidence you have, headed into your 30s that you may not have had, at 18, 19, or 20. But and from there, I never thought about writing fiction at all. I always say I owe my writing career to my fiction writing career to John Grisham, because when I was as a young attorney at a large corporate law firm practicing law, my stress reliever was reading, and I love mysteries, I love legal thrillers, and I'd always read his books and enjoy them, but I always say to myself, in closing one, why weren't there any black characters? There weren't any even female lawyers in his books at that point. And it was just one day, I closed the book and said, I'm going to write a legal thriller, and it's going to have a character from Compton in it. And
I know that's right.
I got up one morning early before work, like 4 o'clock in the morning, to take a case that I had worked on and try to craft it into a legal thriller. And that's when sitting there that morning, that's when I discovered my passion. I knew this was something I wanted to do. And it didn't actually work out the way I thought it was. I was going to write the first book. Oprah would call me. Then I'd build my beach house, and everything else would be just, from there. Now, that didn't exactly happen, but but so far, so good.
Now, what was your first book?
My first book, the first book that I tried to write was In Firm Pursuit. But the first book that I got published was Every Reasonable Doubt. Now, see, I wrote In Firm Pursuit based on a case that I had where a guy had been accused of sexual harassment. And in the real case, he'd been accused of sexual harassment. I was the company's attorney. I had no doubt in my mind that he had done what he was accused of grabbing this woman in the elevator. Went to trial. He sued the company, claiming he was set up, right? But I don't think the jury was out an hour. And his case was dismissed. But in Firm Pursuit, I wrote that what if the company had set him up?
Right.
So, and I took that, and when I wrote that book, it took me 3 years to write it, and I just thought it was a masterpiece, and it was not. It was absolute crap. I still have the manuscript because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to plot a story. I didn't understand story structure. And after spending 3 years on that book and giving it to all my friends and waiting for them to tell me I was going to be, a New York Times bestselling author, and that didn't happen, and it really, and getting a lot of rejection from agents. But then I'd also read that John Grisham got 45 rejection letters, and people told him nobody wanted to read about lawyers, and he didn't give up, and he kept writing. So I kept writing. And it was really when I wrote the second book, Every Reasonable Doubt, and took a couple of writing courses and kind of began to understand how to craft a mystery, how to write something that's a fast-paced, that's engaging. Then that book actually sold, and then when I got a 2-book deal from BET Books, and when that book got sold, I actually rewrote In Firm Pursuit. So don't think it's not a good book now. It's a very good book. And I rewrote that book, and as many writers will tell you, the writing is in the rewriting. That's the first drafts always suck. At least mine do.
Well, now you brought up some very interesting points, especially in terms of never give up, and in terms of having to scrap a project that you worked on 3 years, even though you redid it again. Now it's back out again. But I'm trying to think, was Every Reasonable Doubt, was that the book that was out whenever we were together before? I don't know if it was that one or Attorney-Client Privilege, of which one it was. But I remember, in all of your books, whenever I get them, I usually read them from cover to cover, because what I was sharing with the listening audience was, with anybody's daughter, and since I have 4 of them, I was literally, as I'm reading through this, picturing if that was one of my kids. I couldn't imagine what the parents were going through, knowing that this girl was out there somewhere. They didn't know where she was, and then the whole drama unfolds, because I won't give it away because we want you to get the book. But in any event, as you read through there, you will start, especially if you're a parent, start putting yourself in the place of those parents. And so the other thing is, now in terms of what you were talking about in terms of with Grisham and not even seeing any female attorneys, and what was your challenge? And I don't even want to say how hard was you, or was it hard? I don't know. In terms of breaking into the market now as an African American mystery writer that's writing about an African American female attorney.
I think it was very difficult. I mean, all writers get rejection, and that's part of the game. But I think, even back then, the publishing houses weren't really recognizing black characters that way. And even now, I'm beginning to feel some change. A lot of young African American authors in the mystery genre are getting a lot of play, and I'm so excited to see that, because that didn't happen. Most publishing houses had a African American imprint, and for most of them, if you were black, you were going to be in that African American imprint. You weren't going to be in their mystery imprint. And I can remember, and probably even now. Well, I went to a store like a Walgreens or a Target or a Walmart in Compton or in Detroit or whatever. You're not going to see African American authors in there. You don't see Terry McMillan and Eric Jerome Dickey and Walter Mosley. All you see are these white authors. And I think people, I still think publishing is one of those segregationist areas that people haven't even haven't broken through. I think the publishing houses just now are beginning. So many people, like the wonderful Brenda Jackson, who's the queen of romance, was told, well, black people don't read. This is crazy nonsense.
Right.
And it's even and I want people who are listening now, go to your local store where they have the books on the mass market paperbacks on sale. How many African American are on there? So how come when I walk into my Target, I may see only a couple of black authors? I don't even see our best sellers on those shelves. That's deliberate. They don't even sell us to us.
Wow.
That's a whole nother area of frustration. But you do what you do.
Now, because when you were on years ago with me, self-publishing really had not taken off yet. How big of a deal or how much of a difference has it been for folks to be able to publish their own work versus going to a publishing house?
And I think that's been a big deal, because I know a lot of people who have started that way and then later got deals. I mean, a lot of agents are like, some agents don't even want to touch you if you self-publish, because they think that, you're going to go with the publisher and get a few books and get your name out there and then go back to self-publishing. So I don't know. It's I'm glad to see it. It saved me, because I was offered a deal for Anybody's Daughter before it was published, and I turned it down. And 3 months later, it won the NAACP Image Award. So and now it's so easy to do now. I mean, with the Amazon publishing houses, and it's just so easy to do.
No, it is, and it's a double-edged sword. I tend to agree with you, because I remember Vanity Press, and those were just kind of hitting, because this is the 21st year that I've been doing this. I've been doing this since 2001. Wow. And Vanity was just kind of coming out during that time frame, and a lot of people was putting out a lot of crap. It was kind of like, if you're going to self-publish or you're going to do Vanity Press, you really need to make sure you had somebody edit it, proofread it, and so forth. Because one of the worst things you can have, and you know this, is to be trying to read a book and you're struggling through grammar errors, punctuation errors, or what have you. That is very frustrating for an avid reader. And it's extremely frustrating for a speed reader, because I learned how to speed read, and whenever I come across material that's not grammatically correct, it's like hitting potholes on the road. Like, oh my God. So, I mean, that's where you're right in terms of it. It's a good thing, but at the same time, it could be a bad thing. And I hadn't even thought about that angle you just talked about, that the publishing house would say, oh, you just want to get your name out there and you go back and do your own thing. I hadn't even thought about that. But what about in terms of, because again, I'm going back reflectively, because you were on the show in the early years. The digital or the electronic books, they weren't out yet either. How much has that made an impact in terms of your being able to move books, in terms of people downloading on the Kindle like I do, or
Oh, absolutely. Because right now, my sales, first is ebooks, and the second most popular is audiobooks, and the third is print books. I make more from audiobooks than I make from print books.
Wow.
And so it's made all the difference in the world.
I guess people have.
Also, it's like you don't have to spend the money to mailing them across country
right
and all that. Right.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, at this and theoretically, I still like my good old paper book. My good old paperback book in my hand. However, from a practical standpoint, I have over 1,000, probably nearly 2,000 books on my iPad now in the Kindle app.
Wow.
So, and my iPad goes with me everywhere I go. So I'm never not having a book in front of me because they're in there. So wherever I go, if I have downtime, I open up the iPad and my nose is in the book. But it's still, in terms of the feel of, because right now I'm reading a paperback book. The paperback compared to the Kindle, the paperback just has a different feel to it. Even on the eyes, it's different in terms of reading it. So it's interesting that you would say that audio and is before now paper. I'm not surprised at it. From a practical standpoint, you really can't beat it. So now, in terms of your concepts, because each book, even though it's dealing, it's a mystery, is dealing something legally, where do you get your ideas from? Or do you just have one of these vivid imaginations, or are they all based on cases you've had in court, or where do the ideas come from?
Not cases necessarily, but something that moves me. Like anybody's daughter, when a friend told me that girls were being trafficked in LA, I couldn't fathom that was true. Got home, Googled it, and all this information was coming up, and I was stunned that nobody was talking about it. Now, my latest book is Failure to Protect, and I remember the precise moment I knew I was going to write that book. It was actually a Christmas Day, 2018. I was talking to a friend who lives in Alabama, and who was saying how the second little girl in an Alabama town had taken her own life. And was 10 years old. There was two little girls. They didn't know each other, different, a few months apart. And I was like, how does a 10-year-old not know how to take her own life, right? And it's like, that's crazy. And when we hung up and I started, and both little girls were bullied, and when I Googled bullying and child suicide, the most striking thing came up. Every story that came up where the kid was over 12 was white, and every story that came up when I was Googling it when the kid was under 12 was African American. And that blew me away. And then I subsequently learned that the suicide rate for African American children under 12 is twice that of white kids. Why is that? And that just immediately took me off. It's like I wasn't sure how I was going to couch the story, how I was going to tell it, but I knew we needed to bring attention to that. And I began that book thinking bullying causes suicide. Not exactly. It was an intervening factor. We don't deal with depression well in our society, and we sure don't deal with it in children at all. So it was really childhood depression. The bullying aggravated it, but there's some serious problems going on, and I just wanted to bring light on that issue.
Absolutely. And you are correct on all counts. A lot of my guests in the beginning of this year, like the January, February, March timeframe, we were dealing with mental health issues. A lot of the authors had written books on mental health. And mental health has, for me, in my mind, the last couple of years with COVID and everything, mental health has been exacerbated. And now when you start talking in children, because you're right, we don't address that. And so when you start wondering, well, how would a 10 or 11 or 12-year-old commit suicide? They do. I'm a principal of a school. And this year alone, I've already had 2 cases of 2 fourth graders that we had to put in crisis mode because they had written it or either had said it in the school setting. And once that happens, that kicks off a whole nother chain of events that legally we have to do. And in one of the instances, the child couldn't come back until he had gotten a psych eval. So there's no.
I'm glad those protocols were in place because a lot of schools didn't have it, and only now schools are beginning to recognize it and and deal with it.
And it's there. That's the thing. As a matter of fact, you're talking about the sex trafficking. I had a professional development the other day that was provided to us by the prosecutor's office, and I had no idea that trafficking was as prevalent as I'm here on the East Coast here in the third largest city in New Jersey. And I was like, I don't think it's that prevalent here. Then she put the map up. She put the color code map up. We're one of the highest areas, the New York area, the New York, New Jersey area, one of the highest areas in the country. They say anywhere that has an orange blot on top of it, that's a hot area. The entire, just about the northern New Jersey, entire state of New York, pretty much the entire East Coast was orange. And what I didn't realize was the definition of trafficking in that is not the same thing as, you always think in terms of movement. When you hear traffic, you're always thinking in terms of, something moving. Trafficking, what I learned that day, could be a kid that's still going back home. And we don't know.
Yep.
And so your books seem to be, they're mysteries, but at the same time, they're dealing with social issues.
That's and I like to say I write mysteries that matter. I like to say that I look for topics where that if I don't know it, I think I'm pretty well informed. So if it's something shocking to me and where I'm learning something, I really want to pass it on to others.
So I'm looking here at the titles, and the website that I'm on is it is the AALBC website. But I know there are a couple of websites that have your work in there. And so if I miss a book, I know this might be outdated. I'm not sure. But I see Every Reasonable Doubt, In Firm Pursuit, Murder on the Download, Buying Time, Attorney-Client Privilege, Anybody's Daughter, The Setup. You deviated a little bit when you started talking about the hair, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. Unlawful Greed, Lawful Deception, Abuse of Discretion. Now, that was 12. Is it one or two more since then, or more than that?
I'm looking here, too. There's a Failure to Protect. There's hold on.
Well, I know Failure to Protect is the latest.
Failure to Protect is the latest. I'm trying to think. There's one more that I think we're missing. That I guess it's nice that Lawful Deception.
Right, Lawful Deception.
Yeah.
I have Unlawful Greed.
Unlawful Greed, and I'll go for Unlawful Greed, the short story. But I think you got them. I think you got the most of them.
So you have about 14 or 15 books published.
Yeah. 14 books and a couple of those are short, and a couple short stories. Yeah.
Wow. And I also see that you have a pen name. Are you still writing under the pen name as well?
I haven't in recent years, but I probably will at some point.
Oh, okay. Because I'm going to go to Amazon and see what titles you published under that name. I want to read some of those, but
okay. Might not be old enough. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think I got there yet.
Okay, and that pen name is Sassy Sinclair.
That's right.
And it's a little for grown folks.
Sassy Sinclair. All right now. Speaking of that, listening audience, I hope you've been with me the whole time, but if you just joined me, my guest this morning is Pamela Samuels Young. She is returning after many years. My guests always have an open invite. I always tell them that, anytime you want to come back, just pop me an email or a text or whatever. And Pamela did just that. I got an email from her a couple months ago. She'd gotten one of my email blasts and says, "Wow, you're still doing the show?" Yes. I had a couple of people that did that, as a matter of fact, that I've rescheduled and come back, and I'm glad for it because it shows the progression of your work. I mean, in terms of, for folks out there, because you did the transition from corporate and being an attorney to, for the most part, full-time writing. For somebody that's sitting or listening to us that may be thinking they might want to do the same thing, what advice would you have for them?
First, learn your craft. I mean, so many people I know want to write a book, and like you talk about errors and all that kind of stuff. Know your craft. Write a book, and if you write that book, make sure it's good. Make sure you're getting feedback. I still grow. I'm still learning. I'm still, I'm taking a storytelling class right now that's helping me with my writing. So learn your craft, to be willing to do double duty. I mean, there's a time earlier in my career where I wanted to quit my job, and I'm glad I didn't early, because it would have been a struggle. So I kept working. I did go part-time at some point before leaving the law altogether in 2016. But and keep growing and take feedback constructively. You know, a lot of people are so sensitive. Oh, well, they didn't like it. Oh, well, you know what? If you give me a good book, I can't stop talking about it.
I know that's right.
So that was my test. I probably have a group of about 10 people I give it to ahead of time, and if they're not excited, the book isn't ready. The book isn't ready.
I know that's right, because it's interesting that you would say that, because most folks who know me in terms of like gift giving, whether it be birthday, Christmas, whatever, they're going to get one or two things out of me, either a gift card or a book. They know right off the bat. And like my nieces and all of them know, oh, that's from Uncle Mark. It's a book. They know, but that's how passionate I am in terms of reading. The other day, I sent my sister a book from Amazon. I had to mail it to her. She didn't know it was coming. But she immediately, whenever, first when her husband threw it in the house, she said, I didn't order anything from Amazon. But immediately when she tore the package open and saw her book, she said, oh, that's from Mark. She hadn't even read the message in there. She just knew right off the bat if it's a book, it's from Mark. But I can honestly say, because most of my reading is usually what it used to be called self-help. Now it's called self-development or something. They changed the name of the genre. But a lot of my books of that are either autobiographies. But I can honestly and truly say, and I'm not just saying this because she's on the air with me this morning, but Pamela Samuels Young is one of my favorite authors when it comes down to mysteries and thrillers. I have a couple. It's Pamela, Jennifer Chase. She's another one. She's been on the show some years ago. But Jennifer is another one who writes mysteries. Pamela is another that writes mysteries. I mean, when I say keep you engaged, they keep you engaged. You don't want to put the book down. Exactly. So if that's your objective, Pamela, I can say, as one who reads a lot, who is an avid reader as well, as far as I'm concerned, when I'm reading it, your objective is hit with me.
Thank you. And I'm not familiar with Jennifer Chase, but when I hang up this phone, I'm going to look her up, because I'm always looking for a good mystery.
Yeah, she's a mystery writer as well. Matter of fact, she just released, I don't even know the title. I saw it come up because I follow you all on Amazon. So Alexa lets me know when you all release something. Alexa will let me know that your author you follow has just released. So I know she just released something. But you two, and then of course, like you said, the John Grishams, and I'm trying to think of the other big name. Like, of course, when I was reading horror, would be Stephen King, but I let horror go because it's giving me dreams. So. But I do love the thrillers and the mysteries that you all write. And like I said, Pamela is one of my favorite authors in terms of like relationship. Is like Kimberly Lawson Roby. And see, you were talking about going into the Targets and the Walmart. I remember being in a Walmart or something like that. It was one of the stores. I believe it was Walmart. I was in my mother's in Georgia. And we were walking through, and I was actually seeing books of authors who had been on the show. And I believe yours was in there. And I was like, I believe it was in there. I could be wrong, but I know it was a few. I know Kimberly Lawson Roby's was in there. I think yours was in there too. And it was a couple other people I'd had on the show. Omar Tyree, I know he was in there. And I was like a kid at Christmas. Mom, I've talked to these people. Mom, I know these people. Mom, they've been on the show. I was like a kid. So what is it like? I mean, because and the issue that you brought up, I know is a real issue in terms of it's by design. It is. It really is. But have you gone to stores and seen your books in there?
It was more so when I was with a publisher. I mean, I think it's a lot harder as a self-published author to get that store space. So, but there are things along the way that happened. I remember when I self-published my first book, when I walked into the Barnes & Noble, it was a staff pick. Staff get to pick the books they like, and it was highlighted at the front of the store in Marina Del Rey, California. So, I mean, and nowadays it's not as important as it used to be, that store space, because it's all about Amazon.
Right.
And Amazon offers a lot of ways for authors to get the notice. And one of the things I've done, since I have so many books and I have series, I've offered my first book, the ebook. It's permanently free on Amazon. Every Reasonable Doubt. So anybody out there who wants to try me out, go get Amazon. It's going to cost you nothing. Buy Every Reasonable Doubt. And I do that because I know I'm confident enough to know you're going to read the next book.
Correct.
Right now, one of my biggest sellers is my second book. So many people are reading the first book and there's follow through with In Firm Pursuit, the next book. And if you go to Amazon under the free section and put in legal thrillers, I'm going to be in the top 10. And I've been in the top 10 under the free legal thrillers for, 4 or 5 years.
No, I'm going to say again, deservedly so, because, and I read a lot. So when I say this, I'm saying this from the standpoint, again, not doing anything other than telling the absolute truth. Some of the best ones I've ever read from legal thrillers from you. It really is. And it does exactly like you said. If they read Every Reasonable Doubt, they're going to want to read the next one. Because I've read 4 or 5 of these. I haven't read all of them, but now that I see the list, I probably will get through them. I know I've read Attorney-Client Privilege. I remember that one. I remember Every Reasonable Doubt. I remember Anybody's Daughter, and I think I read Murder on the Down Low. Those I think I know I have read. And I haven't gotten to the other ones yet. And I haven't started the latest one. I haven't started that one because this is what usually happens by the time I interview you all, I haven't read the book from cover to cover. I've skimmed it, to have talk points, but I haven't read it from cover to cover. So your latest work, which is really going to interest me, being a principal of a school.
Oh, you'll really love that one because one of my characters is a principal, and she's my villain. Because she is trying to ignore the bullying that's going on because she doesn't want the attention focused on that. And she is not protecting her children. So failure to protect, you will, as a principal, you will get a kick out of it. So when you finish it, slip me an email.
Oh, I know. I'm gonna send you a text. When I finish it out, I'm definitely and I will definitely be able to relate. And I can even relate to even what you just said. But sometimes that can blow back in your face real bad. Whenever you try, it's best to just, like I said, I've had a couple cases. It's best to follow the protocols and the procedures, because it's like people think with the whole bullying thing, with the whole suicide thing, people a lot of times think that we overreact or we do too much. But this is the thinking, particularly with the suicide things. If they say it or if they write it, the thinking is if you let that child go home and he or she actually does it. When the investigation comes down, one of the first questions are going to be is who knew and when did you know it?
Right.
And so you never want to take that chance of, they're just blowing smoke. They're just talking junk. They're not going to do anything. If, God forbid, they do go home and do it that night. Because one of my little boys, because one of the questions we ask is, all right, well, how do you intend to do it? Do you have a plan? So one of the kids said, nope, I have no plans. And that's another way you can kind of get a feel for are they serious or not. But the other child, he had a plan. He was going up to the 3rd floor of his building and jump off.
That's so sad. And in the book, actually, the legal part is that the family sues the school district.
Oh, yes, for sure.
So, and that's the legal aspect of the story.
For sure. Oh, by all means, anything. And you're an attorney, but we are in such a litigious society that it doesn't take much. We're always mindful of, this could wind up in court.
Absolutely.
And so, I would definitely resonate with that book. No question, we'll be able to connect with it right off the bat. Just the fact that it's dealing with that situation. This is the other thing, because New Jersey, we were the first one, if I'm not mistaken, because there was a college student, I believe he was at Rutgers or one of the universities, that ultimately killed himself because of taunting and teasing and bullying. And that's where the whole act and everything came into play. And I believe it went across the country. But I know we have a whole harassment, intimidation, bullying system. It's called HIB. That anytime if a child comes in or a parent comes in, we have to go through again. It's a computerized system. We have to do an investigation. There's timelines associated with it, and you have to be within the timeline. You have to do an investigation. You got to interview the kids, interview the parents, so forth and so on. And then, you ultimately at the end of all of that, you make a determination whether it's founded or unfounded. But it's a long process. But we do all that, again, to prevent any child from ultimately getting to the point where they feel like they want to take themselves out because they're being bullied. And you brought up another point. The interesting point is there could be underlying issues that the bullying just, takes them to another level.
Exactly. Yeah.
One of my favorite movies is Keep the Faith, Baby. It's about Adam Clayton Powell Jr. And there's a question in the movie that the reporter asks Adam. And he asks Adam, of all your pieces of legislation, of all your accomplishments, what's your favorite one? And that question always intrigued because I love the way he answered it. I'm going to ask you that same question. Out of all your books, do you have a favorite?
It always ends up being that the latest one is my favorite. But Anybody's Daughter was most impactful, and I think Failure to Protect, because it deals with child suicide and bullying. And I often, when I'm talking about the book, don't even mention the word suicide because people don't want to think about that or talk about that. But that's the problem. We have to talk about it.
Correct.
And I'm actually working on a book now that I'm just having trouble kind of crafting it. I'm still in the research phase. And the working title was Beyond Justice. But I am trying to deal with the mental health crisis in a different area. I have a friend who has a son who is schizophrenic and is not taking his meds and is not getting the system is built against the family. Yet when somebody goes out and does something, then you want to put them away for life.
Right.
We don't have a system. What we realize is in the system in the 80s, 70s, I don't know when it was that Reagan dismantled, at least in California, the mental health system in terms of there were a lot of facilities that were awful. Yes, they were, and they did need to be changed, but they closed everything and they were going to rebuild them. They never restructured. So when somebody has a mental health crisis in L.A., I talked to a mental health judge. There are 12 available beds right now. 12 in L.A. County. That's insane. There's sometimes you need a locked facility, and we're not dealing with the homeless crisis. A lot of those people are mentally ill.
Correct.
People going, we're gonna build homes. They're not gonna stay there.
Right.
We need treatment. We need homes. Yes, we need affordable housing, but we need mental health treatment. And even the judges. I'm dealing with judges and lawyers who are in the mental health courts, and it's in crisis mode. And there are going to be more people that people who are mentally ill are harming the public and doing things, and we're just not doing well with it. So I am really trying to, through my friends' challenges with the system, trying to tell a story of the crisis that we're in. And like I said, it's been a struggle, and usually my books aren't a struggle. If it's a struggle, then I feel like it's a story I shouldn't be writing.
Right.
And I move on to something else, but I just can't let go of this, and I'm just still moving forward, trying to.
Well, I'm gonna champion and cheer you on. Matter of fact, bravo for taking on the topic, because as I said, particularly since COVID hit, either mental illness has always been there, and we just, it was one of those things that we didn't pay any attention to. But since COVID has hit, it has been at another level of folks losing their minds. I don't know if it was the isolation. I don't know if it was the virus in and of itself that might have been triggering things off within the body. But all I know is I've heard and seen more cases of mental illness over the last 2 years than I've ever seen or heard of in my life. And kudos to the athletes and the entertainers who are coming out and saying, I can't do this, I need help. Kudos to them. And then now what you're saying, which is true, and that's a question I brought up the other day in my professional development with the prosecutor's office in terms of with the kids being trafficked, because a lot of them, the reason that they were out there to begin with was just as you said, because the kid had mental health issues. That's how they wound up out in the street or coming across the trafficker or the pimp or what have you. So my question to them was, this is the thing with mental illness. You can put on, they're very good actors. They can put on an act when they're around people, but when they get alone, they're torn up on the inside.
Right. Right.
And so the question becomes, how are you able now? Because that was my question. Like, how do I know if I have it now? Thankfully, I'm almost sure I don't have a child in my school that's being trafficked, but I don't know. That's my question, is how can you determine whether or not a child is being trafficked or mentally ill or whatever, at that age?
It's hard. You have to know the signs.
Correct.
Because a lot of times, like you said, there are children who are going back home every day and are being trafficked, and parents don't know. But there are signs. One, sometimes there's bruises. Sometimes they have money, lots of money, when they shouldn't have lots of money. Right. Super secretive. You need to know what your kid. If your child has a cell phone, the trafficker has direct access to your house in your child's phone. You need to check your child's phone. Okay, your child's a minor, so this is free speech, privacy. No. Protect your child.
I know that's right.
Know who your child is talking to. So, because it's they're you have to be diligent and you have to be aware. And most parents are. Most people aren't, because you don't think of it. You don't think of that.
Right.
This whole trafficking thing. To me, if you want to end trafficking, you got to start with. You gotta start punishing the customer.
Right.
Those girls will tell you, my clients are judges, doctors, lawyers. You got to punish the client, okay? Because the pimp's going to be back out there, the girl's going to be back out there. But when you start pulling over these upstanding, fine citizens who are repeat offenders and visiting these girls, you watch the show To Catch a Predator. That's correct. Ministers, men from all walks of life. So and that's how we have to, my opinion, how we have to begin to really tackle that issue. Cut off that supply.
I could not agree with you more. I watched the documentary on Jeffrey Epstein, and I sat there probably mouth open most of the documentary. And they actually interviewed a lot of the girls that had wound up being his victims, and they would say what they were being told. They would go into the poor neighborhoods, they would ride around in the car, and they offer them all this great life and all this, that, and the other, and then they would get them to the island or either in his palace or mansion or whatever it was, and they would and then he had a woman working with him.
Right.
And they were really disappointed in her, even more so. They were like, all right, it's bad enough that the man is doing, but he had a female accomplice. And so, like I said, I think I sat there most of the documentary jaw opened. And then we're like going back to your book, Anybody's Daughter, and what you just said about the cell phone. I could not agree with you more, but I can't tell you how many parents will that will tell me that they won't go in their child's cell phone, or they can't even take it away. And I said, well, who's paying the bill? You're paying for this phone to be on that your child has, and you're telling me you can't take that phone?
That's insane. Then they're not protecting their child.
I agree.
Because I have a personal story of a friend whose niece was trafficked, and only after she was gone, and then they find out what's on their phone and what's on the house. I mean, it happened. It happens.
No, it didn't. Matter of fact, I won't give too much of Anybody's Daughter away, but hopefully it'll whet your appetite. But that's, the young girl was lured by someone she thought was her age, and it turned out not to be her age.
Exactly. You don't know who you're talking to online.
Right.
People get duped out of millions of dollars every day. Of course, a kid's going to be open to that.
Exactly. So, all right, let me change.
And one thing I just want to say, I want people to banish the phrase child prostitute.
Correct.
No such thing as a child prostitute. They are sexually exploited children. That's it.
No, and that, again, right on time. No question, right on time. Because, see, if we don't start talking about these things and making it known to the public on mass level, it's going to keep happening. That's why they can do it, because it's underground. It's undercover. I mean, every case is not major like an Epstein case, and he was able to do that for years. But you have these little local cases. There was a video they showed us in that professional development the other day. It's on YouTube, and I have to go back and find it, get the name of it. But it had the girls in there. First off, they had the two young men that were the pimps. They were able to trick them into thinking, and this is because, see, the bottom line is they were stupid. But in any event, they tricked the two young men into thinking that somebody actually was going to be doing a documentary on their life. So they have the camera on them, and they telling all. about how they get the girls, they show the girls this, that, and the other, and come to find out it was a sting operation, and now they just confessed to everything they were doing on the video. But and it's interesting, YouTube, the girls are in there like 12, 13, 14. Because see, this is my thing, and I'm with you with the customer. There are two age categories that have no interest for me whatsoever. Senior citizens, like somebody like my mom's age, 83, 84, 85 years old, and children. I have no interest in them whatsoever. So when you get somebody, like you say, the customer, and you see that's a child, something's wrong with that.
Exactly.
So let me I'm going to roll over very quickly into the 8 o'clock hour, and then we'll continue on for a few more minutes, and then I'm going to give the mic to you to let you promote, and before you know it, it'll be time to go. So, all right, it is 8 o'clock a.m. here on the East Coast, which means it is 5 o'clock a.m. where Pamela is on the West Coast, and had a fascinating interview as it was before in terms of speaking with Pamela about her books. They're mystery thrillers, but they also, as she says, they deal with social issues. They are thrillers that matter. So you actually get, a double bang there. You get, double bang for your buck because you're being exposed to issues that matter. And it's in a legal thriller mode because, I don't know. A lot of times for me, when I'm reading books like this, is like vacation books. When I'm on the beach or I'm on the plane, this, that, and the other. That's what to me. When I start getting into the nonfiction, the fiction books, that's what I use them for. But yours are fiction books, but as I said, they're addressing real issues.
Exactly. There's no way I would have gotten as many people to read about trafficking if I'd written a nonfiction book about sex trafficking. But if I wrap it up in a good mystery, I'm going to teach you some things. So I want to entertain, but I also want to educate.
Absolutely. Now I'm going to switch gears on you in terms of the books about the hair. I see Consequently. That's a hair journal. So let's talk a little bit about that. As again, that's another one that matters. Because, matter of fact, go ahead. Tell me about that, and we'll talk about the hair thing in a second.
Just going through my own hair journey and kind of discovering natural hair and not understanding that I have curly hair. We wear, nappy hair, you got to straighten, you got to we all have a natural curl pattern in our hair, and we weren't taught to appreciate our hair. And I'm thankful to all these youngsters who are embracing natural hair. Just go to YouTube and put in natural hair. Everything I know about natural hair, I learned from some 20-year-old on YouTube about my own hair. And I think that just learning to appreciate and embrace us. And I'm so excited that these young girls are raising their daughters to appreciate their hair. And they're not putting perms in it and straightening. And if that's what you want to do, go for it. But we have the most versatile hair in the world. I know white women and natural hair wigs. I'm like, everything about black culture, everybody wants.
Correct.
And so I just wanted to talk about my journey and how I had perm badly took out my hair and edges and all that, and how I just sort of learned my hair. And I just want us to appreciate our hair. And nappy is in. I love my nappy hair.
I know that's right. And it's interesting, that statement you just made about the black culture. Dr. Dre did a wonderful ad for Beats, and it's called Do You Love Me? And a lot of these names, because you're out in L.A., so I know when I throw a lot of these names out, you know exactly who I'm talking about. But Dre put out, and I'm not like the biggest Dre fan, but I did fall in love with that particular ad. I was watching football, and it came on. It was like a 2-minute ad. First off, I was just amazed and shocked and thrilled that they aired it. But then I went back and I saw it on YouTube. It is amazing that it says exactly what you just said. And that's what he's saying in there is, do you love me? You love my culture. You love everything about me, but do you love me? And if you get a chance to, see that on YouTube, on that clip, I advise you or encourage you to do so. But it gets at exactly what you said. And the reason a couple of minutes ago when I was talking about the hair, because there are some states that just passed laws that would allow you to go in kinky coily.
Yep. That states also that protecting people from being discriminated against.
Right, that's the ones I mean. That's the laws I'm talking about. Exactly, that's the laws I'm talking about. But just
California passed one very recently. Yeah.
Think about that for a minute. You have to have a law that says I can wear my hair the way I want to wear it.
There were people who walk in and some white person decides or a black person decides they don't like your hair that way. I remember when I interviewed for my job at Toyota, I had braids in my hair. And my friend's like, well, you're going to take your hair out of braids? And no, I'm not taking my hair out of braids. I'm going to interview in these braids. I think I look professional. If my resume and my work history doesn't speak for myself, then don't hire me.
Right.
I did not take my braids out. And I got the job.
I know that's right. I know that's right. Well, the school that I lead is an all-boys school. It's a leadership academy, and it's all male. It's a gender school. You would have to see the different hairstyles that I see coming in there between the locks and twists and man ponytails and man buns. And I mean, they're very expressive, very creative. And I shared with them exactly what we were just talking about. Did you know what? There's states that had to pass laws that you couldn't be discriminated against so that you can wear your hair like that. And they're looking like, what? I'm like, yes.
Crazy.
It really is. Well, I tell you what, I am so glad you had the opportunity to rise early and speak with us. And what I do for this last 5 minutes or so, I turn the mic off and give you the opportunity to promote. You can promote websites, any public speaking, any book signings, any way you want folks to get in touch with you. The only thing you can't say is the cost, because at that point, they can work that out with you once they get in touch with you. But anything short of the cost, any shout outs you want to, publish, or shall I say, publicize the latest book or any of the other 13, 14, I'm going to shut the mic off and it's yours.
Okay. If you're in the LA area, Saturday, a week from Saturday, I think that's the 23rd, I'll be at the LA Times Festival of Books signing from noon to 2 at the Sisters in Crime booth. Sisters in Crime is a mystery writing organization dedicated to the advancement of women. So just come by and just say, hey. The week after that, the 30th, I'll be speaking on a panel at 2 o'clock at the Pasadena Literary Festival. So come by and say hi to that. And I'm working on a project with Dwayne Alexander Smith. I don't know if you've read 40 Acres. And we wrote a mystery called Sounds Like a Plan, and it's about a male and female African-American detectives who are on the trail of a missing woman, and we're working on that project now, and an agent's about to shop the book, and we're excited about that project. And again, I'm working on Beyond Justice, trying to crystallize this mental health crisis we're in, and it is indeed a crisis. And that's the things I'm working on now. I think that's it right now.
Well, I tell you what.
5 minutes, but
no, you got as long as you want. Even for the next guy, as long this is your opportunity to promote. Like I said, anything short of the dollar sign, anything at the cost, you can promote anything you'd like to. But again, I meant what I said. I was sincere in what I said in terms of you being one of my favorite fiction authors, particularly in the mystery genre, because again, I love the fact that, like you said, you educate and you entertain. I love the fact that you're writing books not just for the sake of writing, but there's a message in there and there's some educational value in there, and they are about social issues. They are about issues that matter. Now, you said what the project? You said the book didn't launch. Are you working on it now? The partner project.
Yeah, we just finished it, and our agent. We just got our edits back from our agent. We're about to finish those up and pass them on, and then she's going to shop the book.
Well, I tell you what, when it launches, I can tell you now, if it's in e-form, I will have it in my Kindle, because you've already whet my appetite already. Would you talk about the male-female detective team looking for the missing woman?
And it was interesting writing a book with somebody where we had an outline, but he would write a chapter, send it to me. I would feed off of it and send it back, and we went back and forth on the book that way. So it was kind of a fun writing process.
Oh, well, I'm looking forward to that one then. I'm looking forward to that. And I applaud you for taking on the mental health piece, because it really has got to epidemic type proportions.
Yes, it has.
And like this, and the health, and this is the thing, even going back to when the prosecutor's office was presenting about the trafficking, every group or every organization that's dealing with these issues, they're all understaffed and under-resourced.
Exactly.
So you have it moving in pandemic proportions one way, but you're understaffed and under-resourced the other way. So it's like polar opposite.
You know, and one of my interviews with a mental health judge, he put it in a way that was really crystallized. If you're going to buy a house, you get help. You go to an expert who helps you through the process. You go to a real estate agent who knows the things you need to do. If you have cancer, you're going to talk to a cancer specialist. He's going to talk about things you need to do. When you have a family member with a mental health issue, you don't have the same help.
Correct.
Managing the system and the problem. You're just out there on your own.
Correct.
And it's so you want to wait till the person commits the crime, and then you want to jail them. But they're ill.
Correct.
And the family needs help.
Correct.
So it's at a crisis level, and we need to do something about it. Hopefully, my book will be a voice to help in that fight.
Well, I'm looking for that one as well, and I'm certainly going to read this one about the bullying. What's the title of that one again?
Failure to Protect.
Failure to Protect. The
tagline is a school's blatant cover-up.
Well, I have that. I have that in my Kindle already. I just haven't started reading it totally yet. I've skimmed it, but Failure to Protect is definitely on my reading list. I'm looking forward to it because I know I'm going to connect with that. I know I'm going to connect with. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Pamela Samuels Young was my guest this morning. Always a pleasure talking to her. And I thought whenever we originally had email back and forth, you had something going on today too, correct?
Yeah, I take a storytelling class.
Right.
Performance today. I'm telling a story about my dad.
Oh, okay.
So I'm excited about that.
All right.
My parents to celebrate. I just had a big birthday party for my parents. Both turned 90.
All right, now God bless.
I have two healthy parents walk into the room on their own, no walkers, just up and about, still active. So I am blessed to be 64 years old and to have two parents who are 90.
I know that's right. Well, God bless all of you. Thank you so much for rising early to join me this morning. And we, again, anytime you want to come back, just shoot me a text or an email. I'll have you back on.
I will definitely do that.
All right. Thanks a lot. Enjoy the rest of the weekend and the week, and we'll be in touch.
All righty. Thank you.
Take care. Well, that ends another edition or episode, shall I say, of The Reading Circle with Marc Medley. And I meant what I said in terms of Pamela being one of my favorite authors. She is. And you start reading her book, you're going to know why I say what I'm saying. You won't want to put it down. It's one of those that once you get into the storyline and into the plot, you won't want to put the book down because you're constantly wondering what's going to happen next.